Your Honor, I stand here not as a defendant, but as a voice for those who have been silenced.
The courtroom buzzed with a restless murmur. Lawyers in tailored suits adjusted their ties, flipping through neatly organized case files. Reporters shuffled for seats, pens and cameras ready. But then, something unexpected happened. The double doors creaked open and in walked a teenager. No lawyer by his side. No parents. Just a wiry 17-year-old clutching a stack of books and papers, his eyes sharp with determination. Some laughed under their breath. "Is this a joke? Who let a kid in here?" one man whispered. Even the judge arched an eyebrow from the bench, his gavel resting loosely in hand. But the boy didn't flinch. He walked steadily toward the defendant's table, placed his papers down, and stood tall. His name was Jordan Miles, a high school senior who should have been in class that morning, but instead he was fighting for his life. Jordan had been accused of something he didn't do, something that could destroy his future forever. The prosecution claimed he'd vandalized a local store, causing thousands in damages. The police report was stacked against him. The store owner, a wealthy man in town, wanted to make an example out of him. Everyone expected Jordan to fold, to accept blame for something he hadn't done. After all, what chance did a teenager have against a seasoned prosecutor and a courtroom full of skeptics? But Jordan had a secret. He wasn't just another teen. He had spent months studying law after realizing he couldn't afford an attorney. He devoured every book he could find, watched endless hours of trial footage, and memorized courtroom procedures. He wasn't just here to defend himself, he was here to prove everyone wrong. Before we dive into how this teenager turned the courtroom upside down, shocking the judge and silencing everyone who doubted him, make sure you hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell. Because on this channel we tell the stories of the underdogs who refused to bow down and fought back. Back in court, the judge finally cleared his throat. "Young man," he said, peering over his glasses. "Where is your attorney?" Jordan raised his chin. "Your Honor, I'll be representing myself today." The room erupted in disbelief. A wave of chuckles rolled through the gallery. The prosecutor smirked, already tasting victory. But Jordan stood calmly, his hands resting on the table as if he belonged there. "I may not have a lawyer, Your Honor," he continued, "but I know the truth. And today I intend to prove it." The judge leaned back, skeptical but intrigued. "Very well," he said. "But be warned, young man. The court does not take self-representation lightly." Jordan nodded, unshaken. "Then let's begin." The prosecution wasted no time. They painted Jordan as a reckless teen with a grudge against authority. They presented photographs of the vandalized store, police testimony, and even witnesses who swore they saw someone matching Jordan's description fleeing the scene. It all looked airtight. The jury's eyes narrowed. The whispers grew. And yet, Jordan just sat there, calmly taking notes, not a trace of fear on his face. Finally, it was his turn. The judge gestured toward him. "Defendant, do you wish to cross-examine the witness?" Jordan rose slowly, adjusting the collar of his thrift store shirt. He carried no fancy briefcase, no polished shoes. Just a notebook and a sharp mind. He approached the witness stand, a police officer who had testified against him. "Officer," Jordan began, his voice steady, "you claim you saw me near the crime scene the night of the incident. Is that correct?" "Yes," the officer replied firmly. Jordan nodded. "Could you please tell the court what time this was?" "About 9:45 p.m., the officer said. Jordan flipped through his notes, then held up a piece of paper. "Interesting. Because according to this school attendance log, I was at a mandatory debate practice until 10:15 p.m., signed by my coach. Would you like to explain how I was in two places at once?" The courtroom gasped. Even the prosecutor sat up straighter, his smirk fading. The officer hesitated. I must have been mistaken." Jordan didn't back down. "Mistaken? Or pressured to identify me because I fit a description?" The judge leaned forward now, eyes narrowing. The jury whispered again, but this time not in Jordan's disfavor. The boy was dismantling the testimony piece by piece. But Jordan wasn't done. He turned, locking eyes with the store owner who had been glaring at him since the trial began. There was something about this man's confidence that told Jordan he was hiding something. And Jordan was ready to expose it. What secret was the store owner hiding? And how could a teenager possibly uncover evidence strong enough to shake an entire courtroom? The courtroom felt different now. Just moments ago, most people had written Jordan Miles off as a foolish teenager and over his head. But after his calm, razor-sharp cross-examination of the officer, the air had shifted. Whispers weren't mocking him anymore, they carried awe, disbelief, and a trace of fear. Even the judge leaned forward slightly, tapping his gavel against the desk as if to steady the rhythm of the room. The prosecutor, clearly rattled, rose to his feet. "Your Honor," he said firmly, "let us not be distracted by irrelevant claims. The defendant may try to play smart, but the evidence remains clear. Witnesses place him at the scene, the damages are real, and the store owner himself will testify to the defendant's motive." The judge nodded, gesturing. "Very well. Call your next witness." The heavy wooden door creaked as the store owner stepped into the courtroom. He was a broad man with sharp eyes and an expensive suit, clothing that screamed wealth and arrogance. He strutted toward the stand as though the entire trial was already in his pocket. Jordan watched him closely. This was the man who had insisted Jordan was guilty. The man who had pressured the police. The man whose influence in the town stretched further than most dared admit. The bailiff swore him in, and the prosecutor wasted no time. "Please state your name and occupation for the record." "Edward Rawlings. I own Rawlings Market on 5th Street. And can you tell the court what happened on the night of April 14th? Rawlings leaned forward, voice dripping with feigned indignation. "I saw this boy loitering outside my store earlier that day. Hours later, I find my store vandalized. Windows shattered, spray paint everywhere, thousands in damage. And then the police tell me he was spotted nearby. It doesn't take a genius to put the pieces together." He shot a cold glare at Jordan. The prosecutor nodded, satisfied. No further questions. The judge turned toward Jordan. "Defendant, you may cross-examine." Jordan rose slowly, feeling the weight of every eye in the room. He approached the stand, his notebook tucked under his arm. He could sense Rawlings' smugness, the kind of arrogance that believed a teenager could never stand toe-to-toe with him. Jordan began calmly. "Mr. Rawlings, you said you saw me outside your store earlier that day. Do you recall what time that was?" Rawlings hesitated, then shrugged. "Around 4 p.m. Jordan nodded. "And yet, the alleged vandalism occurred after 9:30 p.m., correct?" "Yes." Jordan's tone sharpened. "So being outside your store 5 hours earlier somehow makes me guilty of what happened later that night?" The jury chuckled softly. Rawlings' face tightened. "I found it suspicious." Jordan didn't let up. "Suspicious enough to ignore the fact that I was at school until after 10 p.m. that night? Suspicious enough to accuse me without any real proof?" Rawlings shifted in his seat, his arrogance cracking just slightly. Jordan leaned closer, lowering his voice so the room had to lean in. "Mr. Rawlings, isn't it true that your store had just been denied an insurance claim for property damage only a month prior?" The man's eyes widened. "That has nothing to do with—" "It has everything to do with it," Jordan cut in, holding up a printed document. "This is a public record, Mr. Rawlings. Your insurance company had already flagged your store for suspicious claims. And suddenly, a brand new act of vandalism, one that conveniently allowed you to file for thousands of dollars, just happens to occur? And I'm your scapegoat?" Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The prosecutor shot to his feet. "Objection. This is speculative." But the judge raised a hand. His eyes locked on Rawlings, his voice calm but heavy. "Answer the question, Mr. Rawlings." The store owner stammered. I don't know what this boy is talking about. He's twisting facts." Jordan pressed harder, his voice steady and commanding, far beyond his years. "Or maybe, Mr. Rawlings, you staged this so you could collect insurance money. And when you needed someone to blame, you chose me, a poor kid without a lawyer. Because you thought I'd roll over and take it." The room exploded with whispers. The jury leaned forward, their expressions changing. The judge's gavel struck the desk sharply. "Order. Order in the court." But the damage was done. The image of a powerful store owner manipulating the system for profit had already taken root. Jordan slowly returned to his table, his notebook resting neatly in front of him. He could feel Rawlings' eyes burning into him with hatred, but he didn't look back. For the first time in the trial, the power had shifted. Still, Jordan knew this wasn't over. The prosecutor was cornered but dangerous. Rawlings was humiliated but not finished. And Jordan, though he had landed a powerful blow, still had to prove his innocence beyond doubt. The judge cleared his throat, his gaze heavy. "This trial is far from concluded. But let it be known, the defendant has raised serious questions about the credibility of this witness. Court is adjourned until tomorrow morning." The gavel came down. Jordan exhaled deeply, finally letting the tension escape his chest. He gathered his papers, his hands trembling slightly, not from fear but from the sheer adrenaline of what he had just done. As he walked out of the courtroom, reporters swarmed him, cameras flashing. Jordan, how did you know about the insurance records? Do you really think Rawlings staged the vandalism? What's your next move? Jordan didn't answer. He simply clutched his notebook and kept walking. He had more studying to do, more strategies to prepare. Tomorrow would decide everything. But little did he know, Rawlings wasn't done fighting. That night, the powerful store owner made a phone call, vowing to crush Jordan once and for all. And the next day in court, something happened that nobody could have predicted. The next morning, the courtroom was more crowded than ever. Word had spread overnight. What had begun as a routine case against a poor teenager had transformed into a dramatic showdown. A boy with no lawyer versus a wealthy, well-connected businessman. Reporters filled the back rows. Curious citizens whispered nervously. And in the front, Edward Rawlings sat stiff, his jaw tight, his arrogance replaced with a flicker of unease. Jordan Miles entered quietly, clutching his worn notebook. His steps were steady, though his heart pounded inside his chest. He knew today would decide everything: his freedom, his future, and his reputation. The bailiff called the room to order. The judge entered, his robe sweeping as he sat down. He eyed both sides with measured seriousness. "Let's proceed," the judge said firmly. The prosecutor, though visibly shaken from yesterday's cross-examinations, stood tall. "Your Honor, we call our final witness." The back door opened. A young man walked in, head low, hands clasped nervously. He looked familiar to Jordan. It hit him instantly. This was the teenager who had been caught on security footage near the store the night of the vandalism. Rawlings' eyes darted nervously. The prosecutor's voice was confident again. This witness saw Jordan Miles in the area during the vandalism. The boy shifted uncomfortably on the stand. I thought I saw him, yeah." The prosecutor smirked. No further questions. The judge turned toward Jordan. "Defendant, you may cross-examine." Jordan stood, every eye on him. He flipped open his notebook. "Sir, can you tell us where exactly you were when you thought you saw me?" The boy hesitated. Near the alley across from the store." "And what time was this?" Jordan asked. "Around 9:30, I think." Jordan leaned forward. "Are you aware that the streetlights near that alley were out that night? That entire area was in darkness." The boy blinked. I don't know." Jordan walked to the evidence table, holding up a printed report. "This is a maintenance record from the city. It confirms that the streetlights on 5th Street were out for 3 days, including April 14th. So tell me, how exactly could you clearly identify me in complete darkness?" Gasps rippled through the courtroom. The boy's face went pale. I just thought it was him. I wasn't sure." "Not sure." Jordan pressed. His voice grew sharper. "But you came into this courtroom ready to accuse me. Did someone tell you it was me? Did someone pressure you to say that?" The boy's hand shook. His eyes flickered toward Rawlings. For a moment, silence hung heavy. Then the truth spilled out. "It was Mr. Rawlings. He told me to say I saw him. Said he'd help my family if I did." The room exploded in gasps. The judge slammed his gavel. "Order! Order!" Rawlings shot to his feet, face red with fury. "That's a lie. This boy is lying." But the jury's faces told the story. They weren't buying Rawlings' denial. Jordan turned, his voice firm, unwavering. "Your Honor, this entire case was built on false testimony and manipulation. Rawlings staged his own store's vandalism for insurance money. He pressured a teenager into lying. And he tried to destroy me, because he thought no one would listen to a poor kid defending himself." The judge leaned back, studying Jordan with an expression caught between disbelief and admiration. Finally he spoke. "The court finds that the evidence against Jordan Miles is not only insufficient, it is tainted by corruption and deceit. The charges against the defendant are hereby dismissed." He struck his gavel down. Case closed. The courtroom erupted. Applause rang out. Reporters rushed forward. Some jurors even smiled in Jordan's direction. Rawlings, pale and sweating, was escorted out by officers, his empire of arrogance crumbling. Jordan stood frozen for a moment, the weight of months of fear lifting off his shoulders. Then slowly he closed his notebook and breathed deeply. He had done it. A teenager, armed with nothing but truth and determination, had defeated lies, power, and corruption. As Jordan stepped onto the courthouse steps, microphones and cameras crowded him. "Jordan, how did you prepare for this trial? Where did you learn to argue like that? Do you want to be a lawyer in the future?" Jordan smiled faintly. "I just read. I studied. And I believed in myself when nobody else did. Reporters scribbled furiously. Cameras flashed. But Jordan wasn't thinking about fame. He was thinking about the people out there, kids like him, people without money or power, who might one day face injustice. Maybe his fight would remind them that they weren't powerless. The truth is simple. You don't need to wear a robe, carry a gavel, or own a law degree to stand up for what's right. Sometimes, courage and persistence are the strongest weapons you can have. Jordan Miles' story is proof that no matter your age, your status, or your resources, you can fight back against injustice. And sometimes, you can win. If you've been hooked to this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, Racism Exposed, where we bring you true stories of underdogs who fight back and triumph against all odds. And here's our question to you. If you were in Jordan's shoes, alone, accused, and underestimated, would you have had the courage to defend yourself? Or would you have given up? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your voice. Because remember, justice only lives when ordinary people dare to stand.